The statement "a Florida man" is usually the setup for some silly crime that occurs in Florida, but not this time. On Thanksgiving in 2009, a Florida man killed four of his relatives and injured two others, leading authorities on a 5-week manhunt. This is the story of Paul Marriage. Hello, good day, and I hope you had a good holiday weekend. My name's Sean, and I'm here to research and tell you stories of true crime. If you're a returner, then welcome back. And if you're new here, then hi, hello, and welcome. Thank you for all my subscribers out there. If you're not a subscriber, then quickly subscribe. I don't know where the button exactly is, but click it. Subscribe. It's free, and it helps me out. It helps YouTube out. Uh, you know, many of my watchers are actually not subscribers, and here's the graph showing that I have more watchers that are not subscribers than subscribers. So come on, subscribe. I'm trying to make a living doing this, and it's sometimes slow going because I really do love entertaining and doing all that. So, with all that being said, like, subscribe, and comment. I do respond to all comments too. Let's get on with today's story. The story is about Paul Marriage. His last name is Merhige. I've heard it pronounced a couple different ways, but the majority of the ways that I heard it pronounced was marriage. So I'm going to stay with that pronunciation. If I'm wrong, I am terribly sorry. If I'm right, then hey, I don't have to apologize. But Thanksgiving is a time of the year for everyone to be thankful. It's a time for family. It's a time for friends. It's a time to eat big dinners and have a great time. But for Paul Marriage, it was a time to kill off his family members. On November 25th of 2009, Jim and Muriel Sitton decided to have Thanksgiving festivities. They lived in an upscale neighborhood in Jupiter, Florida. Jupiter is a beach town about 55 miles north of Miami. The guests included their 6-year-old daughter, Michaela, tongue tied, sorry. Muriel's parents, Antone and Raymonde Joseph. Muriel's aunt and uncle, Michael and Carol Marriage, and their two twin daughters, Carla and Lisa. There was also a number of other family members invited, but they didn't really give many of their names. Not many of them were named in articles, so I couldn't find the exact list. Not invited, though, was Paul. Nobody invited Paul. So Jim Sitton was a little confused when he received a phone call from Paul asking for directions. His parents, of course, knew nothing about this. They denied even telling him about it. They said that he kept asking what they're going to be doing for Thanksgiving, and that they just kept hee-hawing and kind of bouncing around the subject not to tell him where they're at. But Jim reluctantly gave him the address and the directions, so he went. There was about 17 other family members in attendance of the party, and Paul was kind of the black sheep of this family. And many of them in attendance had not seen him for years. He was described as a lazy 35-year-old man who failed out of college and lived off his parents' wealth. Even though he is estranged from most of his family, that didn't stop him from jumping into the festivities. He sat there with the family for 3 long hours, joining in the fun. Now, some articles said that he had nothing to do with the fun and just sat there. But then I also had some articles saying that he joined in. So I really don't know. I'm just I'm just reporting what I find. So that's the reason I say both sides. Michaela, being the fun-loving little 6-year-old, she sang and danced for her family. She had a ballet of the Nutcracker coming up, and she did not hesitate to show off her performance to the family. She even made cards for all members of the family that were there, including Paul. Um, this next part with the crime, I'm going to have to give a trigger warning because I don't go into great detail, but I mean, I'm just trying to be sensitive to those. When things were starting to wind down, Marriage excused himself and went out to his car. He then entered the house again with guns and started shooting at his family. First to get hit were his twin sisters, Carla and Lisa. They were both 33. Carla was a real estate agent and Lisa was pregnant. Next, he shot his aunt Raymonde. It's a weird name. Raymonde. She was 76. He shot her in the shoulder, and as her husband crouched down trying to stop the bleeding and everything like that, Paul stuck the gun to her chest and fired again, blowing a hole in her sternum. He then shot at Lisa's husband, Patrick Knight, and he survived. I mean, he got hurt bad and he survived, but he was put into a medicated or a drug induced coma to try to heal him faster. I mean, he was out for weeks, if not months. Um, and then Clifford Gebra, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He was also shot, but it was just a grazing. So, I mean, he was in and out of the hospital really quick. Before leaving the house, he went up to Michaela's bedroom and shot her while she slept. He left the room and then quickly turned back around and then went back into the room and shot her again. Um, one article said that he left her there with a bullet in her back, her hip, and her head. So that's 3 shots. Everything else says that he just shot her twice. I don't know. Needless to say, he killed a 60-year-old girl, which that's why I said the trigger warning, because it bothers me. And I mean, I read all this stuff, but anytime a child gets killed, I mean, not that anyone else getting killed is not disturbing, but I don't know, snuffing out a child's life just seems worse than anything else. So Marriage fled the scene. He ran away from the home and he disappeared for about 5 weeks. He was found in the Florida Keys eventually. The police across Florida, including U.S. Marshals, searched for Marriage. They looked for his 2007 Toyota Camry. America's Most Wanted even aired a story on him with hopes that somebody would recognize him. And it worked. He had changed his hairstyle, switched out his license plates, and was living in the hotel Edgewater Lodge for the 5 weeks that he was gone. But people recognized him on America's Most Wanted and reported him. They stormed the hotel room, which was basically a trash pit. I mean, living in there for 5 weeks, I guess that's what it turned into. They did find a noose in there, um, thinking that he was probably going to off himself, but he never did. Records were showing that he had taken out $12,000 out of his bank account right before Thanksgiving. And there were store videos of him buying a gun the day before Thanksgiving. Court records also showed that he bought $2,000 worth of guns and ammunition in the weeks prior to the dinner. I think they said like 4 or 5 guns that he purchased. Yeah. So there had been turmoil in this family for years. It was a tangled web, if you will. In the late 90s, Merhige himself sought a protection order against his sister Carla, stating that she was trying to kill him. He ended up dropping the request about 5 weeks later. He stated that her and his family knew that he was getting treatment for mental disorder, and they just wanted him to get worse. And that's the reason he filed in the first place. But then in 2006, Carla filed a protection order against him. She stated that he was going to kill her and himself, and that he had not been taking his medicine, and she feared that he would get more violent. But it was quickly dropped too. I think within a couple of weeks she dropped it. There was no explanation on why she dropped it, though. During the trial, a relative described Merhige's face as an evil, haunting look as he fired rounds at his family. Patrick Knight stated that when he was laying on the ground bleeding after he got shot, he saw Merhige enter Michaela's room, leave, and then re-enter it. This was, I think, one of the final blows to convict him. Jim Sitton did not think that Merhige had originally planned to kill his daughter, but he thought that Merhige was possibly jealous when he saw like the family's delight from the daughter dancing and singing and how talented she was. So they think that that's when Merhige decided to kill her too, because I think that he didn't have much contact or any contact with her. So this was like the first time he ever saw her anyway. So I don't know. Jim, during court, ended up dropping to his knees and begging the judge not to take a plea deal. He repeatedly asked the judge not to take it. They didn't want to go through a long trial, dragging it out, and the prosecuting attorney offered him a plea deal to not get the death penalty, but he had to plead guilty for the crime, and then he had just received 7 life terms instead of death. And Merhige jumped at that opportunity. On October of 2011, Merhige was sentenced to 7 life terms. He pled guilty to doing the murders. Circuit Judge Joseph Marks told him that he would never see the light of day again. Well, Sitton was not happy about the plea deal. and he wasn't happy about the whole thing. So he filed a lawsuit against Merhige's parents, Michael and Carol, claiming that they knew he was coming to the party and that he was prone to violence. They still upheld that they had no idea and that they never told him about the party, but it really didn't matter. During the proceedings, Raymond's husband, Dr. Anton Joseph, stated that he had previously treated Merhige and was well aware of his mental instabilities, as was the rest of the family, including Merhige's parents. Well, the judge weren't listening to any of this. It was a panel of 3 judges, and they completely disagreed. The suit was thrown out by Judge Minu Satter in March of 2012. The court said that the parents did not have a legal duty to protect others from their adult son. The court ruling said that ruling against the parents would lead to other family members of mentally ill people to be prosecutable. So basically, it would open up a giant can of worms and more than likely flood the judicial system with lots of suits. One of his parents' attorneys, Alan Rosen, agreed with the court. He said that there were no winners in this situation. The whole situation was tragic and everyone was hurt. Yeah. And it is a terrible situation. Merhige was stating that he wanted to go to a mental hospital, but he gets prison instead. It's too bad he didn't get it sooner. It's too bad that, earlier in his life, no one paid attention. One last interesting thing from this is that this was not the first time that there was killing in the family. In July of 1973, Michael Merhige's sister killed her husband and 2 children in Miami. Salwa Merhige Abram, she was 43, was a well-known mezzo-soprano opera singer. She had given up a high-profile career to raise her children. And the killings happened one day after her husband, James Abrams, he was 45, and her were in court finalizing their divorce. Their 19-year marriage ended when he decided to have an affair with a flight attendant and move out of the house. Well, she got him to come over to get some stuff, and she shot him dead and then turned the gun on her daughter Melissa Ann, who was 10, and her son Jack, who was 14. She died 5 days later from a drug overdose. I looked, I could not find anything about her, like any photos or anything like that, so I can't include those. Mental illness, and this whole case is just oozing mental illness. But mental illness is a terrible thing that often runs in families, and it should never really be ignored. And it seems like in this case, a lot of it was ignored. I feel bad for the Sittons. I feel bad for the Merhiges. It's a terrible thing. Many people suffer from mental illness. I suffer from mental illness. I get treatment for it. So, but if I didn't take medicine for depression, where would I be? Or medicine for my anxiety, where would I be? You need to watch out for each other and help family, because a lot of these crime stories that I do are people that have mental illness. So until next time, please feel free to watch any of my other videos and subscribe. Please. I love you all. Be good to yourself and to others. And I'll see you next time here. So take care.